our next guest, it's actually appropriate that he's closing us out because he started us off this morning. My man, Kevin Rogers, I feel like I've known forever. He's like my lost brother. Just one of the smartest, sharpest guys I know. Like I said, former stand-up comedian, one of the best copywriters working right now, marketing strategist. He runs a really successful site called Copy Chief, where it's a super successful community just for serious copywriters. So if you are a copywriter, want to learn more about copy, check out Copy Chief. And what else can I say about Kevin? Anyone who knows Kevin or has worked with Kevin knows he's just a stand-up guy. Like, he delivers, and I think you were actually the first person I asked to speak at the event. I said, I'm going to do Freedom Fest. You want to? Yes, like before I even finished. And then, do you remember what we were talking about? I said, I'm thinking of doing a pajama party. Is that crazy? He said, I love it. Once I get Kev's support, I know I go for it. Because he's just the kind of guy you trust, and you know he's going to lead you down the right path. So I'm not even sure what he's talking about today. I just said, you have the stage. Just deliver whatever that awesome thing is you do that's going to get you guys closer to your dreams. Kevin's going to be the guy to deliver it. So, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Kevin Rogers.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right.
Hey, can I get a water? Water up here? Yeah.
You are so high maintenance. Water for Mr. Rogers.
Thank you. Ryan Lee, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan Lee. Up in here. So I know you guys are, feeling it, man. This has been a lot of information. And so get ready to relax and chill. And we're going to talk about some cool stuff, but it's not going to be tactical. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. So you can put your pens away. Put your pens away. Let's have a talk. Let me tell you a little story real quick. In 1962, a young man, a 7-year-old kid named Edward Ludwig, boarded a ship from his home in the Netherlands to a new life in America. He didn't know English. His family had no money. They had a piano. So they loaded the trunk of their belongings and a big-ass piano onto a ship and came to America, which kind of cracks me up because can you imagine, like if I was moving across town, I'd go, fuck it, leave the piano. But this family loved music so much, and music was such a part of their life that they could not be without their piano. So they arrived in America, and the piano is significant because the father was a musician, Edward's dad, and it's how they got the ticket to get on the ship was that he played with the band. He earned their ride over. Could you not unwrap that candy the whole time I'm up here? God love you. Thank you. Fucking A. You're the guy at the movies who sits behind me, and you got it's not your fault that they put loud wrapper candy in the dishes. But just rip that shit open and eat it, man. Tika. I don't want to disturb anybody. Tika. I'm a sensitive performer. So Ed's family gets to America. He doesn't speak English. He goes off to school. Segregation is still in effect. So Ed goes to the all-black school where he quickly makes friends, but the white kids beat him up anyway. And the family didn't have much, and Dad couldn't get any work as a musician, so he was a janitor, and Mom was a maid. But they had the music. The music was their escape, and they would run around the house, Dad playing the piano, and they'd bang on pots and pans, and they'd sing songs loud. They loved it loud. And so Ed, his mother wanted him to be like a classic pianist, but he wasn't that interested in it. So when he got into his teen years and he was tired of piano, she didn't want him to lose his interest in music. So she took all the money she could gather and she bought him a drum kit because he's always begged for a drum kit. And he loved that drum kit, and it would piss him off when he would come home from school to find his older brother playing the drum kit, better than he could. So out of revenge, he took his brother's guitar and this little amplifier he had, and he'd crank it up and he'd pluck away at it. Didn't know how to play it, didn't know how to read music. But it felt good in his hand, so he stuck with it. So Ed would pluck away at that guitar, and pretty soon his plucking started to become a style, a unique style, because he didn't know what he was doing. So he kept at it. And pretty soon he became obsessed with the guitar, and it sounded, there was a voice in his head like a sound in his head. Musicians know that certain musicians, guitarists, are called what we call tone chasers, right? Ed was a tone chaser, and he had this really distinctive tone in his head. And so he couldn't get any guitar to match the sound in his head. He got a job delivering pianos, nice full circle there, at the local music store. And so he had access to all these instruments, and he'd try them out. And he'd get, one of these fucking guitars has to have the sound I hear in my head somewhere. None of them had it. So he started getting like old used instruments, guitars, wherever he could, and he'd take them home at night and he'd rip them apart, and he'd put one part from one guitar, and he'd like chisel pieces of the body so he could put the pickups from a Gibson into a Fender, and he was just really trying whatever he could to get that sound. You know, like, and this is now, it's like 1972, and like most kids, the smell of like weed would be coming out of the room, but the smell coming out of Ed's room was soldering smoke, because he was just trying to get this sound. So finally, through some lucky combination of ripping shit apart and put it together, he heard the sound that he'd always heard in his head come out of a guitar. But it was a monstrosity. You know, it was chiseled apart and broken apart and stuck together and bolted together. And he realized how ugly it was, so he painted it black, and then it just kind of looked even more weird, so he took some electrical tape and he taped it up and he started painting it different ways, and it came out this kind of cool looking, crazy striped look. And so now him and his brother, who had an equal passion for drums, put a band together. And they would go to local gigs, and everybody would laugh. And who are these clowns with the long hair? Because it's the 70s, and it's disco, and it's punk. And who are these idiots? They're looking like Led Zeppelin. And what is that ugly-ass guitar? And they would laugh at him until he played it. You might recognize that guitar. That monstrosity is called the Frankenstrat. It's Eddie Van Halen's guitar that he finally created that made the sound he heard so clearly in his head. And in 1978, the band Van Halen released their first record, and the second song on that record, in 1 minute and 42 seconds, changed how we hear music for the rest of our lives. I never knew Jesus, but I know he must have been a badass, because they started the fucking clocks over when he died. Right? I mean, you got to be pretty badass if they're like, shit, Jesus died and then he was here again, and now, and they're like, they lost track of time. They were like so obsessed with it. They're like, I lost count. Just fucking start over. Well, Eddie Van Halen was such a badass on guitar because he never stopped chasing the voice he heard inside of his head, that in the world of rock and roll guitar, there's what's known as BV and AV, before Van Halen and after Van Halen, because nobody ever approached the instrument the same way again. And 1 minute and 42 seconds on a song called Eruption, everything changed. So that awkward little kid who didn't speak the language, who really wanted to play drums, who picked up a guitar to get back at his brother, became Eddie Van Halen. And let's just listen to a little bit of what was going on in his head in that bedroom. Turn that shit up. Yeah. Feel that? You don't just hear that, right? You feel that, right? Speaking of tapping, that shit had never been done in rock and roll. Crazy, right? That's what happens when you listen to your voice. Every one of you have a unique voice. And one of the things we get caught up on when we get into this business, whatever business you're in, but especially if you plan to become any kind of expert, one of the biggest hang-ups we have is, this has been said before. Everybody knows this already. Why would anybody need to hear this from me? The reason they need to hear it from you is because nobody else will ever say it exactly like you. How many millions of notes had been played before that dude picked up a guitar? He didn't care about that. He had something he had to say, and he didn't stop until it got out. So my message, when it comes to this, and how I'd love for it to affect you, is when you have an idea, or you have a concept, or you have some moment of inspiration. You know those ones when you're in the shower and you're all soapy, and you're like, oh, that's it, oh my God. And you come out all wet, and you like scribble it down, and hold on to that for a few minutes. Don't tell anybody about that right away. Don't post that shit on Facebook right away. Because when you do, it's not yours anymore. Now you've shared it. And that's too much trust to give out. He didn't ask 1,000 people how to make the sound in his head. Only he could hear it. Okay? When you have a great idea and you post it up on Facebook and nobody responds, you go, must have been nothing. There was no Facebook for Eddie Van Halen. You know? Or what if somebody comes in and goes, yeah, you could do that, and it sounds just a lot like what this other guy did over here. And here's a book you could read that'll tell you more about it, and maybe you could do it this way. And now you're trying to do everybody else's idea. Do your shit, man. The way you do it. So that monstrosity of a guitar that he got him laughed at and then changed music history forever. The funny thing is, the minute Eruption came out and every guitarist in the world went, oh, I want to do that. All the guitar makers tried to make a guitar that did that. But Eddie, being entrepreneurial in spirit even then, began to put fake stuff on the guitar to throw off the imitators. He put a fake toggle switch, or he'd add a pickup that actually wasn't even wired in. okay? Because he knew, no, this is my thing. You guys laughed at this shit. This is mine. You can't have this. You can't sell this. Years later, Eddie finally decided to create his own replica of the Frankenstrat. And he made 300 of them, and he sold them for $25,000 each. $7.5 million, which is more than he earned on the first 4 Van Halen records. Why? Because he stayed true to the sound in his head. He didn't let anybody piss on it or steal it from him or tell him it's okay, but. So if you need a coach or a mentor, or you want to look up to other people in this business, do it because you're already sure about what it is you're after, not because you're lost, right? It's good to have guides, and it's good to have people blaze trails for us. But if you really have something to say, and you really feel like it needs to be said, let it develop. Let it grow. And then go find out the best ways to get it out there. Because the only way people are really going to react to it is if you hear it clearly first. Yeah? Now, one more cool thing about Van Halen. This is important to me. As you can see, I'm kind of passionate about it because I suck at guitar. I'm horrible at it. My son, however, kicks ass. He can play by ear. Don't know where he got that, because I've been playing the same three chords for 25 years. And he loves it. And so he does these shows and plays with some bands. And I always wanted to take him to see Van Halen, but they don't tour very often. So they finally announced that they're going on tour in 2012, and I go get tickets. And I say, Ben, we're going to see Eddie Van Halen. Can you believe it? Wow, Dad, fucking awesome. And I'll never forget, I was walking my dog one night, and my phone rang, and it was Ryan Lee, and he goes, dude, doing a thing called SAM in Park City, Utah. He goes, I think you'd be a killer speaker. I got one slot left. You want it? When is it? It's the same night as Van Halen. He didn't say that because he didn't know that, but it was. And I said, let me call you back. I had talked to my dog about it. And she said, dude, Van Halen's awesome, but this feels like a turning point in your career. You've always wanted to be able to get on stage and speak, and it's a pretty big honor that Ryan would ask you to do this. You should probably go do it. So I told Ben, sorry, man, but this is important. Do you understand? I understand, Dad. It's all good. So he and my wife went to see Van Halen, and that was awesome. But I thought, we'll never get to see Van Halen. My son, by the way, I think of that must have been like Eddie, right? Minus the laptop. And here's some crazy full circle shit. Guess what's happening Sunday when I fly back to Tampa, Florida? Van fucking Halen! Ah! So we will be at Van Halen Sunday night, my son and I. Yeah. I get excited. I'll be the old guy making a fool of himself. Now, my other little message of inspiration. By the way, this is not a copy tactic, but you just had Ben Settle up here. And, if you will just apply everything Ben Settle told you, let's hear it for Ben Settle, man. I mean, that dude, that's a dude I follow. So that's all the copy you need as far as I'm concerned. Follow your voice, listen to your voice, trust your voice. And the other thing I want to share with you is that if you aren't sure what you should be doing in this business with your business, if you kind of keep jumping around, going back and forth, one thing to the other, sometimes you got to start backwards. That's a picture of a woman named, Gladys Kravitz from Bewitched. That's right. Her name was Sandra, and I met her at a car wash in Los Angeles, California, when I was there, broke and destitute and very lost and confused because I had done stand-up comedy for a decade, and a friend of mine was given a sitcom on NBC, and he was going to be the star of this sitcom, and they told him, and he said, I just want to bring a dude who can be my writer, and I really wanted to be a comedy writer. And so we naively thought him just asking for that would be enough, but that doesn't work that way in Hollywood. So I moved out to Beverly, more like North Hollywood, and got out there and found out I couldn't have the job. And just being that close to the gig made me realize I didn't really like Hollywood and show business and all the liars and the weird shit that was happening. And so I was confused, and I was kind of done with the stand-up thing, but I loved the writing, but I didn't really want to work on a studio show. And I had nothing. I had no money. I was lost. And so I'm sitting at a car wash on La Cienega Boulevard, and this delightful woman sits down next to me. And nobody, I don't know if you guys live in LA or have you ever been there, but nobody talks to anybody in LA. That would make you weird. Are you dying for that candy? I feel bad now. I needed to strike out at you at that moment, and now I'm past it, and I feel like we should talk.
It's a nice thing about guilt, it goes away.
I'm going to buy you a Snickers when we get out of here. And you're diabetic. Are you really? I'm going to buy you 2 Snickers. And this lovely woman says to me, isn't it beautiful today? I just got back from Chicago, and it was so cold and rainy there. I said, are you talking to me? I said, oh, really? I'm from Chicago. I came here from Chicago, too. And we start talking. She says, what are you doing here? I tell her the story. I'm bummed out, and I'm broke, and I don't know what I want anymore. And she said to me, well, you seem like a nice guy, and I could give you my agent's card, and you could maybe call him and see if he could help you. She said, but I have a feeling that's probably not what you're really after. She said, so let me give you a piece of advice that my husband used to say to people a lot when they'd ask him similar questions. He would always say, sometimes in life, in order to find out what you want, you first have to find out what you don't want and be true to that. Wow. So simple, but I'd never thought of that before, ever. And that day I decided what I didn't want was to be broke and lost and confused and live in shitty-ass North Hollywood anymore. So I packed everything I had in my trunk a week later, and it's the first time I've ever moved away from something instead of to something. And it was really powerful. And so through a weird, winding, twisty couple years where I decided to do different jobs and things, there's her quote, life to discover what you really want, you need to start with what you don't want and first figure it out from there. Here I am now, through some crazy twists and turns, I discovered this amazing thing called copywriting. And what's funny is that from trying to go from stand-up comedy to like some kind of legit gig, I was doing like bartending and bellmans and all these kind of cool jobs, but no resume jobs, right? I'm unhireable is what we're saying. I am proudly unhireable, but because now I'm glad about it because I get to be an entrepreneur, back then I was really scared about being unhireable. So I had learned to not talk about the showbiz thing because I really quickly realized that it's a great bonding tool. We go like this. So tell me about some of your work history. Well, I did stand-up comedy for 10 years. Did you really? That must be fascinating. Oh, it is. And I did this and I gave that. Okay, great. We'll call you. I never got those jobs. So I realized shut up about the stand-up comedy thing because they just assume it's a stopover job. And the first time some booker calls and goes, "Will you drive to Dothan, Alabama for $150? Hell yeah. I'll be out of there." So when I got into copywriting and I got into our world, I had stifled the comedy thing. I had forgotten that that's what got me there and that that was unique and that that was special. And so it took a couple years and some smarter people to say, "Hey man, do you get that you have a unique experience that a lot of people would love to hear about and learn about? And they have this fantasy maybe of doing the same thing one day. You should incorporate that into how you teach copywriting." So I did, and again, it comes all back to hearing that voice, right? And doing whatever you do, whatever unique thing you have that nobody else has. Nobody else has your DNA, right? So whatever it is, just do it your way. So let me show you a little video. And I want to show this to you because it's the culmination of me coming back full circle to the fact that I'm allowed to just be funny, not take things too seriously, and it can sell a lot of my product. All right, so this is a video I did for just a quick, so you have some context. It's my community called Copy Chief, and we launched a new course called the Fast Wins Copy Course. It's closed now, so this is not a pitch, but this is the video.
Hi, my name is Kevin Rogers. I'm the founder of Copy Chief, and I may or may not be wearing pants right now. Now, why would I sit here, potentially pantless, and talk to you about your sales copy? Seems weird. Well, the reason is that launching a product or advertising a service with bad copy is a lot like leaving the house with no pants. It'll cause people to point and laugh at you, and at first you'll just think you're popular, but pretty soon you'll realize you're creepy. So what exactly is bad copy as opposed to good copy, and how do we avoid writing it? Well, here's a few examples. Bad copy makes big, hypey promises that the product can't back up. You'll be driving a Lamborghini in 30 days, just like the one I rented in this video. Good copy demonstrates the value of the product in the ad itself. Everything I'll teach you in the Fast Wins Copy course is in effect on the very page you're looking at right now. Bad copy tries to bully the prospect into buying. Is that your family? Yeah, it's your family. That's a good-looking family, yeah. Be a shame if anything were to happen to them. So let me ask you one more time. You gonna click? You gonna click? You gonna click? You need to click. Good copy answers every objection with a benefit. Is the Copy Chief community a Facebook group? No. No, it isn't a Facebook group, and our members love that because Facebook is great for seeing pictures of your neighbor's dog in a sweater, but when it comes to crafting the perfect sales message for your product, you'll want a more refined environment, a place where the pros are comfortable hanging out and giving advice. Bad copy uses false scarcity to create urgency. Only 10 copies of my ebook left, and then they're all gone. Good copy removes all risk for the buyer and makes it easy for them to test drive the product. So I invite you to check out the offer below. And if you like what you see, give Copy Chief a try. And I'll personally guide you through the Fast Wins Copy course over the next 10 days for $1. And if you don't absolutely love it, canceling is as simple as clicking a button and typing the word cancel into the chat window. So as you can see, the difference between good copy and bad copy can be subtle, but they're important. So if you'd like to learn how to write good copy fast, then come join us and I'll look for you inside. Sound good? A wrap? Sweet. Thanks. Now,
Thanks. Couple of notes that might be helpful on that. First of all, as you can see, I did not plan to be pantless on camera that day, or I would have worn funnier underwear. But that, why that is relevant to what we're talking about here is what you don't see is the 2 days before that I tried really hard to look into the camera and give a straight pitch for this program. And list off all the benefits and all the cool things and all the things that sounded important. And then I got totally fed up and went, screw it, I'm going to do something nutty, right? And the other thing is it's teaching. So if I can give you one more takeaway, if you're ever lost about what to write about or what to talk about in a video, think of one thing you can teach, yeah? Any question that anybody has ever asked you, let that be the subject of what you're talking about. Give a lesson, and there's no more powerful way to draw people into you as if you're always giving and teaching. Thank you.
Kevin Rogers. Awesome.